Hans Duda had just gotten a bus, kind of an old school bus, but it was the first bus in the movement, the first Sankirtan bus. And he was talking about having this world Sankirtan party and travel all over. And, everyone was excited about that, and he was telling Prabhupada about it. And, so Prabhupada said, when Prabhupada would go on the morning walk, Prabhupada said one morning, he called Hansa Duda and said, "Let us go for a ride in your bus." And Hansa Duda was, "Oh yes," he was all excited. And but then when we went out to the bus, we realized Hansa Duda, they had taken all the seats out of the bus. It was just this floor. He hadn't yet done anything with it. And Prabhupada couldn't sit like that, but there was no seat. So I got some chair from the temple, some kind of a chair. So what I did is I had to hold this chair down there was no way of attaching it to the floor. I had to hold it on the floor, and Prabhupada sat in the chair. And all the devotees piled into the bus. Everyone was very excited. And where we're going to go, a ride with Prabhupada. So, and then Prabhupada started giving directions. I think Ramandev was driving, and Prabhupada was giving directions. Turn here, go on this road. And he was driving, and Prabhupada said, "All right, now turn here." And in this way, Prabhupada was giving all these directions. And everyone said, "Where are we going?" Nobody knew. No one was bold enough to ask Prabhupada where we're going, but Prabhupada knew where he was going. And we're going throughout Boston, and Prabhupada's giving directions. Devotees are all chanting on their beads. And we go to the downtown area, and finally we come to the waterfront, the dock area, and boom, there we are, Commonwealth Pier. And actually, no devotees had ever been there or even seen it. Prabhupada didn't tell us so many details about his life. He was always talking about Krishna. So, and even when we got there, we didn't really fully realize where we were, but this was actually the place where Prabhupada had first entered America. And so anyway, Prabhupada started walking, and we were all clustered around him. The devotees are walking on this big pier, and these big roads, and there's kind of all these warehouses are there, and factories and so on, and we're walking amidst all these big buildings, and Prabhupada was preaching, and as he always did on his morning walk, and then he was talking about pure devotional service, very important, pure devotional service. And of course, the word unalloyed, Prabhupada would always use this word, unalloyed. And it's kind of an exotic, this unalloyed devotional service. Because unalloyed, of course, unalloyed means alloy, it means a metal where you have alloys. An alloy is metal made up of many different kinds of metals. And Prabhupada was always saying unalloyed. So that meant without many metals, just one metal. So, and Prabhupada was preaching, and he was talking about unalloyed devotional service to Krishna, and Lord Chaitanya, and so on. And then at a certain point, Prabhupada was talking about this unalloyed, and he took his cane, and he said, "Yes, unalloyed devotional service. And he pointed with his cane, and we all followed the cane. And there was this huge sign on this warehouse. It must have been, like 100 feet long, a big, huge thing, the whole building, and it was Unalloyed Steel Company. And we all looked and said, yes, unalloyed. And Prabhupada was using this word, unalloyed. I mean, that was probably one of the first sites he had. And Prabhupada used that in his preaching. And then he took us there and showed us, unalloyed devotional service. Very simple instruction, but he used it, he made it so graphic. Just like a teacher would use on a blackboard and write the word, and take the pointer and show. We were like that. Prabhupada used to call us his students. We were like these young students, and Prabhupada is showing us. Prabhupada went to Mauritius. We had some devotees there. They were preaching, and of course Mauritius is the Prime Minister, the population of Mauritius, I think, is something like more than 50% is Hindu. They're from India originally, mostly from Bihar. Historically, the British had brought them there to cultivate sugar cane. So anyway, Prabhupada was to meet with the Prime Minister. He's no longer Ram Gulam. And so when Prabhupada arrived, the Prime Minister, I think he had some affairs. He was busy with some other affairs. Anyway, he gave Prabhupada one of his personal limousines, which is a very nice, it was a Citroën. Citroën are very special cars. They're made of aluminum. They're not made of steel. And they have this suspension system. It's like an ambulance has, where it's like you're floating. Anyway, he gave his limousine, and there was this army officer who was the driver. So anyway, Prabhupada was there for a few days, and primarily he had come to see the Prime Minister. I had an occasion I had to make an international phone call. I went to someone's house to make the call. While I was there, I was watching TV, and on the TV it showed the Prime Minister cutting the ribbon on a big project that he was inaugurating. What was the project? The project was a chicken processing plant. And it showed how the chickens were taken, and there were these machines going around, and the chickens were hung on these by the neck, and then there was this knife cutting, and and then the feathers, and then the whole thing, and then out comes a chicken ready for cooking. And it was shocking to see us all on TV. This was a gift from the French government to the people of Mauritius. And I was there. Of course, they would then probably sell all the fertilizers and the chicken feeds and all the, these foreign aid projects are all tied in with, it's actually a business. Anyway, so I mentioned to Prabhupada that I saw the Prime Minister. When I mentioned what he was doing, Prabhupada said, "Oh, then he's Hindu," and he said, "I cannot meet him." So Prabhupada decided not to meet him. So I mean, because it meant the man had no principles. So anyway, so there were some days where there was really no programs scheduled. So Prabhupada thought to we'll go for a ride. We had this big limousine there, and the officer, he had nothing to do, and Prabhupada wasn't going. Brother, let us go for a ride. And so we all arranged it all. And Mauritius is a very scenic, very beautiful place. It's kind of pristine island. So Prabhupada is riding in the back seat. I'm sitting next to him. Pushta Krishna was in the front seat. The driver is driving, and we were whizzing along. It was very pleasant. These sea breezes, the beautiful ocean, and sky, and everything is very nice. These sugar canes growing. We were driving along the coastline, and beside him, Prabhupada had his cane, and Prabhupada was enjoying it very much. Had the window down and the fresh air, and he was sitting cross-legged on the seat, back seat, and so Prabhupada was enjoying, and then at a certain point, I didn't realize, I mean, I didn't notice it then, but later on, Prabhupada spoke. At a certain point, Prabhupada just took the cane and put it like on the floor and was holding it like this with his two hands. I mean, just after taking the cane, we just made a turn on the corner around the bend, and immediately, I mean, there was not a second to react. It happened so fast, head-on collision. What it was event we found out, a tourist from South Africa was driving on the wrong side of the road, and that was it. So we just hit. I mean, it was boom, head-on collision, and everyone in shock. The driver, he's full of blood. I mean, he's just I didn't know what his condition. I pushed to Krishna. The glass shattered. He's wounded, blood. I also with my arm gashed. Prabhupada had blood on his dhoti, his knee, and we're all shocked. I mean, my first reaction, which was a little bit maybe inappropriate, I just put my arms around Prabhupada and just held him. It was just so shocking. And Prabhupada didn't say anything. And then Pushta Krishna was out of it. I was the only one who could function. I don't know, somehow I just got out of that car. The other car was a Volkswagen. It was man and woman, and the woman, she was like unconscious, and the man, he was getting out of his car. And anyway, I realized I got to get Prabhupada out of here. And I didn't even know where we were, and I didn't know where our house was. I didn't know anything. And anyway, then after a while, a car comes by, and now Mauritius, of course, is it's an Indian place, and there are very few Western or white people. So anyway, this other car, the car that we had, they were white people. The car that also came, there were white people there. So anyway, I tried to stop the car. The car just went right by. They didn't want to. They saw this accident. They didn't want. Anyway, then another car came by. So this time, I stood in the middle of the road. The car stopped. So the car stopped, and I went up to the people in the car, And I said, please, we need help. My grandfather, I don't know what to say. I said, my grandfather is injured, an old man. Please, you have to take us to the nearest hospital. So they said, okay. But they also saw the other car with the woman. The woman was, they saw Prabhupada, they saw he was in India. Then they see this woman, she's unconscious, she's full of blood. Prabhupada just had a little bit of blood, but she was really bad. Volkswagen, head-on collision. So and then the other man was wanting for his wife, he wanted attention for his wife. So we were competing, and so they would say, well, maybe we should take her first, because they didn't have much room. And I said, no, you take us. And the other man said, no, we want to go. And I just slapped the car. I said, you're taking us, and you're taking us right now, and let's go. There's no... So they said, okay. And so I took Prabhupada out of the car, and we went and everything. Prabhupada is absolutely silent, never speaks a word. I put him in the car, get in the car, and then these people start driving. And anyway, we're getting in the car. The only reason they were taking us because I forced them. And we get in the car, and they said, well, we don't know where the hospital is, and this and that. And anyway, we're going over here and to our hotel, and you can go to the hotel. And I said, no, we want to go to a hospital right now. And so Prabhupada didn't say anything, so I knew whatever I was doing, Prabhupada was agreeing to, because he didn't say anything. So... but then I could see these people weren't helping us, and they didn't even want to take us. They didn't want to find the hospital. They just wanted to go to... So I realized being with these people, this was not good. I just told, all right, stop the car. They're not going to help us. Stop the car. And they stopped the car, and I we got out of the car, and then they left. And there we are, standing in the middle of nowhere, and I don't know where to go again. Lost, And then another car comes along, and I stopped that car. But this car had 3 Indian guys in it. And they saw Prabhupada, they were, offering respects, and, Swamiji, and I said, yeah, take us to the nearest hospital. Get in the car. We'll go to the nearest hospital. Then Prabhupada said, no, take us home. No hospital. So I didn't even know where our home was, and we had to. Eventually, they could understand where it was and so on. And so anyway, they were very happy to take us immediately home. We were all the way on the other side of the island. It was quite a drive. So we go home, and the car pulls in. Harikesh Maharaj was there. He didn't come with us. He stayed. He was doing the transcription. He stayed back. He didn't know what was, because we left in a limousine and we came back in this junky old, with 3 Indian boys, a junky old car. And then Prabhupada gets out of the car and there's blood on his door. He's just shocked. And Prabhupada's not speaking anything. Just goes into the house, sits down in his place. And so we had to dress. There was a wound. We had to dress the wound, clean it, and then Prabhupada was saying that now he wants to go back to Bombay. Prabhupada never wanted to leave Bombay anyway, even for any other trip, because Prabhupada was very much concerned with the Bombay project, getting the land, fighting all the government, the municipality, the local politicians, the residents, the seller. It was just a constant battle. It required constant supervision. Prabhupada had to do that. So then Prabhupada said, well, let's immediately go back to Bombay. So,
Did he ever make any
and
comment?
Prabhupada never spoke about it. One day a letter came, Prabhupada was in India. What had happened was that, Prabhupada was having these big public programs in India. And one evening, some man challenged Prabhupada. He was actually a Arya Samajist. Anyway, he was saying that, oh, Swamiji, you have come here to India with your Western chalas, and but we know all these things. This is our culture. We have all these things, and so better you go, to the other places, and do your work there. And all right, you have been to the West, but what about the Muslim countries? What about Pakistan? You should go to Pakistan and preach there and make them devotees. So this was in a big public, one of these pandals, thousands of people. So Prabhupada said, so you are challenging us to go? And he said, yes, I challenge, yes, you challenge you. You should go to Pakistan. So Prabhupada said, all right, we will go. And then Prabhupada wrote wrote a letter to me, immediately go to West Pakistan, he wrote me, and he wrote to Gargamuni, you immediately go to East Pakistan. And we got these letters, and we immediately left. I don't remember everything was said, but Prabhupada said, immediately go. Immediately meant, boom. The next day, I didn't have any money. They paid for my bus from Florida to New York. I didn't go. And we left immediately. Gargamuni, he had money and he flew. I had to go. I had to go by overland to India, taking hitchhiking, buses, trains, whatever way I could go. That's how I went. And then, of course, the war was beginning. Actually, then Prabhupada then found out about the war situation and the hostilities between Pakistan and India were. This was the 1971 war. Prabhupada wrote a second letter saying that I don't advise you to go at this time. But we never got that letter. We had already left. So we walked right into a war situation. Gargamuni, especially East Pakistan. I mean, when his plane landed at the airport, there was no transportation to go into the city because there was no cars on the road. He had to walk from the airport into the city. But just by we went, of course, in our sannyas dress and so on. Just by the time he arrived in the city, he had to walk something like 20 miles from the airport to the city. By the time he arrived in the city, he had thousands of people following him, just wanting to know who he was, what was going on, and so on. So anyway, we were preaching and we were trying to do something, but it was so difficult. And I was in Karachi. Just north of Karachi is the Sindh Desert. It's the hottest place in the world. I mean, it averages 125 degrees. I mean, it's the hottest place in the world. I'm right there, and it's in May. It's the hottest month. I mean, I was just so sick, and with the dysentery and so many things. So, and I had no books, and the people are spitting on me on the street and threatening to put a knife in my back. And we had kirtan, and people would come up and just, rub off the tilak, and spit, and what a situation. So anyway, So then finally I sent a telegram to Prabhupada, who's in Bombay. Of course, Karachi and Bombay is just not far at all, a few hundred miles. I said, can I get out of here? I mean, I wasn't supposed to be there anyway. Prabhupada said, don't go. And there we were. So Prabhupada said, all right, come immediately. So then, and then of course they made those reports. It appeared in the Pakistani papers first published it, and then the Indian press picked it up, and they published it. 4 Hare Krishna missionaries shot. And Prabhupada's in and Karanda came and showed Prabhupada the newspaper, and it didn't give any names, but it said 4 Hare Krishna missionaries shot. So the Gargamuni was there with Pushta, I was there with Jagannivas. So there were 4 of us, although we were in different east and west. Shot, Prabhupada, my God, shot, you know, and so Prabhupada was very disturbed, and he had Karanda go to the embassy and find out this, that, and everything. And actually, Prabhupada thought we had been shot. So, so then I sent a telegram. So Prabhupada said, yes, come immediately. It said, come immediately, Bhaktivedanta Swami, 4 words. Oh, those are the best 4 words. And, I mean, to get out of the country was a big thing. Somehow we were able to get out. And so I came to Bombay, and I found out where Prabhupada was staying, Akash Ganga. And I went there, and I walked in the room, and Prabhupada, I mean, he just immediately got up from his seat, and he came over, and he just put his arms around me and just hugged me to his chest, and then he took his hands, and he was just putting his hands all over me. I mean, just like a mother. You know, the child had been hurt or something, and the mother is just seeing that the child is still intact. I mean, he was just so, he just embraced, it was just so. Je anilo premadana koruna prachu